But the one big thing I see, especially among people of kind of my age and a little bit younger, so roughly between 25, up to 30 and down to like your mid-teens, is a lot of people do not have an understanding of their vision. They don't have an idea of where they want to go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Life Edge podcast. I'm your host, Chris Staffelt. Today, I am joined by Noah Justice. He is a certified professional life coach and also runs Justice Coaching with his wife, Emily. So, Noah, thanks for being here. Why don't you take a brief moment, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you offer with Justice Coaching?
Absolutely. Chris, it's a pleasure to be on here with you on the podcast today. Justice Coaching is... Well, I guess a little bit about me first. So my name is Noah Justice. I am a certified professional life coach. A little bit of history on me is I apologize. I don't necessarily know where to take this, but I kind of grew up in Oregon. Really had a passion for helping people, had a passion for youth ministry. I spent a lot of time actually leading as a volunteer youth leader at my youth group before I stepped out into the professional world on my own and started following some different career paths into management and moving up that direction, and just found it wasn't my passion. Wasn't the kind of thing that ended up giving me energy. And about a year ago, when we moved out here to Virginia, decided to start following a different path and a different journey. And that ended up becoming life coaching. And I got certified. My wife and I are both starting to pursue this, and we now run Justice Coaching, LLC. It's our own company that we set up where we offer life coaching to usually young professionals who want to really start stepping on the gas pedal in their life, figure out what it is that they want to do, the vision that they have for where they want to go, and to give them the tools and the questions that they need to be able to define that so they can then start pursuing it and setting goals and defining sprints of how to get there.
There's so much to unpack there, but let's go ahead and start with just tell us a little bit about what life coaching entails. For those that are new to life coaching, what is life coaching exactly?
Absolutely. So life coaching is, it's kind of like therapy and it's kind of like mentoring, but it's a little bit of a mix in between. Because life coaching is focused on getting you to be future focused. So unlike therapy, you're not talking about the past a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And unlike mentoring, you're not necessarily looking for someone who is, like super, how do I put this, super professional or super experienced in their career. The idea behind life coaching is you're walking with someone through the experiences that they have in their life right now, and you're asking them questions to help them to think outside the box a little bit. One of the things that I really focus on as a life coach is asking people what their life vision is and helping them define where they want to be in 5, 10, 15 years so that we can then build a plan from where they are right now to where they want to be, and defining the goals they're going to need to have and the steps they're going to take to get to those goals. So to sum that all up, kind of give a TLDR, life coaching is about helping you get from where you're at right now to where you want to be in the future.
How much do you think where you are now had to do with some of the ministry work that you were doing earlier?
I think it's a bit of a long arc because I was doing a lot of this volunteer youth stuff back when I was 17, 18, 19. And I took a break from that for a solid 4 or 5 years between about age 20 and age 24, 25, where I am right now, where I didn't have a ministry I was pouring into. And when I kind of came to the realization that I wasn't pouring into anything or pouring into anyone, a lot of things started to click about why I wasn't feeling fulfilled, why I was feeling like I was just going to work, I was clocking in, doing what needed to be done, and then clocking out. I didn't have passion because I wasn't able to help people overcome the difficulties and questions that they have with life to be able to live the best life they can to improve and build themselves. So that's the connection there between the ministry opportunities that I had and bringing that back to where I am now. I realized that there was something missing, something that I really valued about that.
So when you went to have this conversation with your wife, what was that like? Was that something she was very supportive, or was this something you had to sell her a bit on?
It was actually a decision to pursue life coaching was a decision we came to together, because we'd moved out to Virginia and everything kind of fell apart in all the wrong ways that it could. We had to scramble to find some new jobs. We had to, live off of savings for a little bit, but we finally had gotten our feet under ourselves. I was working 12-hour shifts at a warehouse. She was working like 9-hour shifts as an office assistant. And we just started to realize that all of our time was being spent at work. We were working almost opposite shifts, so we'd only get a couple hours together in the evenings, and it wasn't doing good things for our relationship. And neither of us were fulfilled. And so we started asking questions of ourselves about what we really wanted to do, what our passions were. And it came to a point one night where we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, we don't want to do this the rest of our lives. Even if you get up into management, Noah, and if, I go up into sales, it's just not the kind of thing that gives us energy. And so we started to look at our other options, and we had been listening to Rob Dial, actually, of the Mindset Mentor podcast for a little bit. And we just got this idea all of a sudden of, hey, we love helping people. We love deep conversations, helping people understand what drives them and where they want to go. Why don't we take that and turn ourselves into life coaches to be able to find that perfect mix of, hey, I can be paid helping people do what they want to do, and I love doing that myself. And so after that night, we kind of just started throwing everything together. We got the business going. We got a podcast started. Well, we had a podcast. It kind of flopped a little bit, but we've carried a lot of those lessons through, and that's kind of led to where we are now. So that's kind of the story there. We just had a night one evening where we came together and we were like, we can't do this anymore. What are our options?
That's so amazing that you have a partner that that was willing to make that journey with you, because it's so important. That was a key component to me being able to make a big transition in my life. Was my wife being on board with it, because I can't imagine what life would be like or how much harder things would be if your partner, the person you chose to live life with, was not on board with the decision to move forward into making these big career changes and career shifts. So that's pretty amazing.
I can't understand how some people are able to make it either, because I know my wife is definitely the better half.
Yeah, no, and I got to say that a lot of the aesthetics and a lot of the things that I just don't get, my wife understands. Mm-hmm. And so a big part of where we are today comes from the creative vision that my wife has that I may not have. Whereas I really understand the nuts and the bolts of things and really how to build the structure and get things moving, where she has the ability to really like polish things off and make it presentable to the public. So no, that's amazing. So through this process, this transition you guys made, did you guys have coaching? Did you guys have mentors? Or was this just this is where we want to go and we're going to do what we need to?
It really was the latter, honestly. And it probably would have been easier if we'd had a life coach or two. What ended up happening is, like I said, we were both working, full-time jobs, relatively long hours. And it wasn't until we actually had the opportunity where I swapped to a different job that was only working 10-hour shifts instead of 12-hour shifts. And that kind of gave the opportunity for at least me to start being able to work on this. And we just kind of threw ourselves at it. We just started doing everything we could. We started the Twitter account. We started our, now defunct podcast. We're going to start it up again at some point, but it's on hold for now. And then we just kind of kept going with it, and we figured it out as we went. So that's where we came from on that.
Uh-huh. And I would say too, like you had mentioned, I mean, you guys bootstrapping the thing and doing this in the hours after work and on the weekends, like there's so much credit to be given to that, because a lot of people, when they get done working, they just want to sit at home, eat some potato chips, watch TV, hang out with the family. And for you guys to grind, that's super impressive. But one thing I just like to mention is you mentioned you guys started listening to these different podcasts and stuff, and I think that's almost a form of mentoring when you're reading books that aren't just stories and fables and stuff, which there's nothing wrong with those. But if you're reading business books or life coaching books or listening to podcasts, all related to that subject, that's still a form of mentoring that I think a lot of people, in some ways, can just it's a bit underrated. So I would just want to commend you on that as well.
It really is, honestly. I mentioned Rob Dial with his podcast, The Mindset Mentor, but we also started reading a bunch of different books. So a couple that just stand out off the top of my head, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, The $100 Startup, which I'm just finishing up now by, oh goodness, I cannot remember the names. I can remember the titles, but I can't remember the names of most of the authors. But The $100 Startup was an exceptional book. I'm just finishing that up now. We also read Profit First, which is a business finance book, and that just kind of revolutionized our thought process of how to make our finances work and actually make this business profitable from the very start. So going back to the point you made about books and podcasts being an incredible form of mentorship, especially if you don't have the time or the money, say, to afford a mentor or a coach, absolutely correct. And I cannot recommend enough for people to just go out to like a Barnes & Noble or go on Amazon and like pick one book, just read through it, study it. And that's what I do. I will study the book and I'll take notes in my notebook and then start applying it. Because if you can do that, there is years of knowledge, decades of knowledge, and just tips and all of these mistakes that they made that they are now teaching you how to get past. And you can get all of that for $25 at a bookstore. This is like absolutely underrated life hack.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. I am a huge proponent of reading and podcasts, so I'm with you on that 100%. I do want to change gears a little bit. And what are some of the success stories of you're seeing of your clients, if you can share? I don't know what the laws are on things like that. So there is not necessarily too many laws when it comes to sharing those things, but I do like to maintain a certain amount of anonymity for my clients unless they expressly tell me otherwise. Yeah. So I can tell you one or two. And actually, I could probably tell you my mom's story the best. I ended up just giving my mom a life coaching session kind of out of the blue because that was one of the exercises as part of the certification process. And I wanted her to start to understand and experience a lot of the changes and mindset changes that I had actually started to see in myself. And we started just this little 20-minute session, like 20 minutes, half hour, where I just started asking her the questions of, what do you want to do? What is it that gives you energy? What are some of the things you're dealing with right now? And even though we only had 20 or 30 minutes together, I was able to unpack a lot of things that she didn't even necessarily see were in herself at the moment. And by the end of this 20-minute session, we actually had a plan of action for her to take immediately the next day. She was able to go out and just start applying what we had talked about in our session to immediately create a change in her life. And I have another client, I won't share any names or anything, where she was going through a difficult time trying to separate out her personal and her business life, where she was working a lot and she was always on call because she wanted to be. That was her passion, but it was draining her. And through just 20, 25 minutes of asking questions and talking about what she wanted her life to look like, we ended up coming up with a plan of action that she was, again, able to execute on almost immediately, that instantly improved her work-life balance. And it's
it's something that actually seems to be popping up in several of the sessions that I've done at this point is people have the tools and the ability to start making life changes almost immediately. They often just don't know it yet. And that's just been something that's been incredible to watch and see, is being able to help people discover these changes they can make to start making their life the way they want. And that's probably been one of the most rewarding parts about coaching that I can think of right now.
So you touched on something there a bit, and I want to lead into this a little, or dig into this a little bit more. Is you said that most of your clients already have the tools, but what do you think is holding the tools to make their life change? But what do you think is holding them back from just being able to see that on their own?
Most of us, it is our own mind. Completely honestly, we hold ourselves back from so much because we think, oh, I can't do this. I can't start a business. Oh, I can't start recording a podcast. I can't put myself out there. And we limit ourselves so much with these beliefs that often we don't even see the solutions that are sitting right in front of us. I was talking with a friend on Twitter who is also a life coach, and we were just chatting back and forth. And I was like, man, I don't know how I'm supposed to be reaching more people. And he literally just straight up texted me. He's like, dude, you just need to put value out there. And it was one of those things where I'm just like, well, duh, of course I knew that, but you don't realize you know that until someone starts asking you the questions. And that is the incredible value of life coaching, is you have someone who has that outside perspective, who is able to ask you the questions that you need to be asking yourself. You just don't know it yet. And when you get into that environment, when you have that environment of sitting down with a life coach and being like, hey coach, I'm starting this business. I don't know what my next step is supposed to be. Your coach is not going to be like, well, you need to go do X, Y, Z. That's what a mentor will do. A coach is going to ask you, okay, well, what's the next step you can take? And that's when you start to get the gears turning in your head and you start to think for yourself and be like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can establish my LLC. I can get the website going. And you start to build this on your own. You're not following someone else's plan. You're actually building your own plan to achieve that vision that you want. That's kind of the incredible power of life coaching there.
That kind of leads me to the next, into a topic in the similar vein, is like, what would you tell somebody who's been trying to figure out, like, is this life coaching thing worth it? I understand, and I believe in, like, I practice what I preach. We promote life coaching. We promote online courses, and I have business coach. I have life coach. I have mentors. I have all these different areas of my life, and I am 100% out there for it. But what would you say to the person who's like, I don't know if I'm sold on this yet? Where's the Talk to us about the value that you were mentioning there.
Absolutely. So the value really comes down to a single question. And that question is going to be, why aren't you able to move forward now? Because a lot of people, they feel stuck and they feel like they don't know what plan or what step to take next. That's where the life coach comes in. We're not going to tell you, hey, you need to go do X, except in rare occasions when you know, the answer is right in front of you and you're just refusing to see it. But most of the time, a coach is going to come in and a coach is going to give you that time and space to be able to start unpacking yourself so that you're not always bottled up in your mind, but you're able to start bringing it out and laying it out flat. And think of it like a crumpled piece of paper. You know, your mind, all the thoughts, plans, and ideas that you have, those things you're struggling with right now, you know, that question of, why do I need life coaching? What do I do? It's all in that crumpled piece of paper. It's all stuck inside your head. And you have to actually have the time and place to pull that out and flatten it out to where you can actually start seeing where all of the dots connect. You can see the vision that you want to have. You can see the pathways that you need to take to get there. And that's the incredible power of the life coaching model, is you actually have that dedicated time and place to bring that crumpled piece of paper out, spread it out, and start to see the big picture. So that's the value of life coaching there. And if you have a hard time understanding that, or, asking, well, why would I be paying, $75, $100, $150 for a life coach if you're just going to ask me questions? I could talk to a friend and say that. Well, the difference there is your friend is going to have a certain bias for you. They are not going to give you the same space. They're not going to be able to give you the same questions that a coach, especially a certified coach who's worked with a lot of people, can. That coach is able to give you a very important, dedicated space to be able to unpack all of that. And they will know the questions to ask to be able to get you there.
That is probably the best explanation I've ever gotten of life coaching. So,
well, thank you.
and the best case for it. Well done. What are some of the main limiting beliefs or main struggles that a lot of clients have?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or people in general.
Yeah. So one of the things I see a lot with my clients is they have a limiting belief of, I don't have the time or I don't have the ability to do X, whatever it is they want to do. Say they want to start defining their work-life balance a little more. They know that they want that, but they don't think they think they need more time to achieve that, or they think they need some other system to achieve that. And kind of the key thing I want to, help people understand as a part of that is that's just a limiting belief in most cases. I mean, I quite literally started pursuing life coaching while working 12-hour shifts from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. If I can do that, and if you've got people out there working 14-hour shifts who are also going and starting their own businesses, that is a thing that you can overcome. You can always find the time and space to do that. You just need to start thinking outside of the box and start asking yourself the hard question of why am I afraid of this? Why do I think this is something I can't do? And when you start asking yourself those questions about those limiting beliefs, why do I think this? Who told me this? That's when you're able to start unpacking them. So that's something I see a lot with my clients is they feel like they don't have the time or the energy and, or the resources to be able to make this change that they want. And I help them see that you do. You just need to look at it a little bit of a different way. And sometimes there's a sacrifice that needs to be made. Sometimes it's just a mindset change that needs to be made. If we have time, I would also like to go into a little bit of what I see as a big problem in today's society, because this is really where a passion comes in for me. Do we have time?
100%.
Okay.
Let's go.
So I just talked about my clients, but the one big thing I see, especially among people of kind of my age and a little bit younger, so roughly between 25, up to 30 and down to like your mid-teens, is a lot of people do not have an understanding of their vision. They don't have an idea of where they want to go. And I think you and I actually talked about this back on my podcast a little while ago, and you brought up a really good point on people have a lot of limiting beliefs that stop themselves, but they also have no sense of purpose. So they don't even know what their core beliefs are. And that was just an exceptional point there. That leads into not having a vision for where you want to go. And this is honestly what really has actually jump-started this whole process for me in life coaching and helping people through life coaching is I want people to understand that if you can set a vision for your life, if you can imagine where you want to be and figure out what you hold valuable, what you hold in kind of like the core of your being, you can actually set a path for yourself. And you can start defining goals of where you need to go in 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years. And you can work back from that vision you have. Say you want to be a loving father who has 3 kids, a house of 50 acres where they can all play and not have to worry about anything else that's going on. That is your vision right there. So how do you work back from that? You start to come up with the goals to get there. One of your goals is going to be to get a house. One of your goals is going to be to have property. One of your goals is going to be in the financial place where you can have kids and provide for them. And once you have those goals, you can work back from that in the individual steps you need to take to get there. Sorry, I just get really fired up and passionate about this because I want people to understand that if you can determine your life vision, which a lot of people have almost no idea of what that even means or how to do that. And it's just as simple as saying, what do I want to do 20 years down the road? When you define that, you can start to work back from that and reverse engineer how you get there and find all of the steps you need to take. And then you have a plan of action that you can move forward on starting tomorrow. And that will create the life change that you want to see.
Well, I don't even have to, like, you just gave a master class on how to achieve anything in life. Literally, just yeah, that's amazing. So Noah, man, I don't even want to ask any more questions. I just want to, and like, that is the point that too many people miss, is you hit the nail on the head there. If you don't have a vision, it doesn't matter what you do in life, because you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to wake up 3 weeks from now, 3 years from now, in the same exact place that you're at, because you can't create a plan to nowhere. Like, it just doesn't work. And so thank you, man. Like, I wish more people would understand what you just explained. Because go ahead.
No, I was just going to say absolutely, because if people can understand that once they set their life vision, they can set everything else in order in their life. I think a lot more people would not only be happier and more fulfilled, but they would also be out there and they would be sharing that information with other people. And, who knows where the world might be if even just 10% of the population started setting a life vision for themselves and pursuing it.
Yeah, 100%. And not only that, life gets harder, but it gets easier too. And to elaborate on that is, life gets harder because, well, now you have to live within these boundaries that are your vision and the plan that you've set up. So you have to tell friends no, you have to tell family no, you adjust your life to achieve that goal. But then it gets easier because you're moving towards this goal. So when things come up that don't fit that vision, it's real easy to just be like, nope, this is where I'm headed. This is what I'm doing. The car breaks down, doesn't matter. I can fix it and move on. This is where I'm going. When life throws these curveballs at you, it's real easy to adjust, solve the problem, and then keep moving in the direction that you need to go. But if your vision is living for hot dogs and beer on the weekends, like, it just there's just not much left there.
And shoot, you brought up something, and now I'm trying to remember the point that came to my mind when you said that. Okay, so you talked about how, life gets harder because you're narrowing your opportunities, right? You're focusing in on something. I almost completely disregard the idea that that is harder, because I would argue it is much harder to live with this unlimited potential of what you could be. And I hear so many people talking about, well, I don't want to limit my potential. I was there, actually even like 2 years ago, I was there. I was like, oh, I don't want to lock myself down into some place because I don't want to ruin all this potential that I have in all these different directions. No. Potential is good when you're 16, 17, 18, where you pick your path and you start narrowing your focus. If you're 24, 25, and you don't want to narrow in your focus on something, you haven't found what lights that fire inside you, you're not even wasting time at that point. You're throwing it out the window as fast as you can. You only have a limited amount of time on this earth, and we're tasked. I honestly believe that we are tasked with the task of helping as many people as we can with the gifts that we have been given. And it is incredibly freeing to have a vision and have a direction that you're heading, because you're no longer being caught in all of this, well, what if I do this? Well, what if I do that? No. You've got a direction that you're heading, and you're going to go there as fast as you can. You don't have to worry about anything else. It's so freeing to not have to worry about all of this potential that's floating around you.
100%. And I guess I didn't explain what I was trying to say. Is the perception of life seems like it gets harder. Let's say
from the outside,
your vision
yes.
is, I want to have a 6-pack and be, yeah. The perception of getting that six pack seems difficult if you don't have one. But once you start the journey, you're like, well, life is easier because I say no to all of this, and all I have to do is worry about this little section over here.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned something there, and I just explaining that I lost my train of thought for a second. So how do you get someone as a life coach? So once you get them to understand and they break through those limiting beliefs, what is the next process of getting the action? Because understanding is one, but then taking action is the next step. So how do people then take that next step?
So once as a life coach, I've worked someone through their limiting beliefs, and I've worked them to actually where the point where they have a life vision, it actually gets a lot easier from there. Because like I explained earlier, once you have that life vision, you can now start to define the goals of how to get to that life vision. And honestly, that can just take a session or two if you really want to dive into it. And I do like to dive into it because you really want to define those as much as you can. And then from there, it's just a matter of coming up with the individual steps to get to each of those goals. And, I will take as much time as I need to with a client to get them to the point where they have a definite plan to achieve one goal. And then I'll get them a definite plan to achieve their next goal. And we work through all of their goals to the point where they actually have a plan now. They can wake up tomorrow, open up their journal or, take a look at a piece of paper that they wrote everything on and be like, okay, yesterday I contacted 15 people through Twitter DMs about my business. Today, I'm going to do that again, but I'm going to make it 16 people. Or, I'm going to make a post about this on a message board. You have that definite path that starts to make everything easier. So I don't see the coming up with the path side of things as the hard part. Once you actually overcome your limiting beliefs and you define your vision and your goals, everything else becomes easy. You have the direction you're headed, and you now have the individual steps you need to get there.
So awesome. Noah, this has been great. As we start to wind down, there is one question I love to ask all the guests, and that is, what is one lesson that you've learned throughout life that you want to leave with the listeners?
Not to sound like a broken record, but you have to have a vision. If there is one lesson I could pass on to people, it's you need to have a vision of where you want to go. And there's a couple different reasons for that. One, I've lived most of my life, 23, 24 years of my life without having a vision. I was just doing everything that came next, which ended up having its issues. A lot of them, actually. And we could probably dive into that at another time. But let's just say I was doing everything I expected I expected other people wanted me to do. And then I realized that I was living someone else's life. I didn't have my own vision. And it wasn't until like the past year here where I actually defined where I wanted to go that I was able to really start living life. And that's something I want for everyone out there. You have to know where you're headed in order to define the life and get the life you want. And just because it comes up all the time in my head, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about without a vision, the people will fall. And that just keeps coming up over and over because I see people everywhere without vision. And I don't think I have to argue very hard to make the case that we're all kind of falling apart. If that doesn't convince you of the importance of having a vision in your life, then I don't know what else will. Just think of yourself living without a vision and now imagine yourself living with a vision that you're heading towards. That would be the most important point I would share with people.
It's so true. And I think, like you said earlier, it could probably change the world if more people decided what they wanted to live for. So thank you so much for your time today. Where can people go to find you and what you offer? Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure being on here with you as well, Chris. Finding me online, I'm at For The Aware on all social media platforms. And that's where you can, kind of connect with me, get to know me a little bit. I put out a lot of content on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram a little bit and Facebook, but Twitter is where everyone should kind of be heading towards. I have a Substack I put out 3 times a week of just general, meditations and ideas that I've had that I've kind of worked through, as well as tips and tricks for how to kind of get your life in order and figure out where you need to go and what you want to do. And then if you go to my website, which is www.justicecoachingllc.com, that's where we actually have our coaching program right now. So what we offer right now is a 12-week program with one session a week. And we will work you through the entire vision process of creating your life vision, defining the goals you want, and then working through those steps to get to those goals. And the whole course is only $1,500 right now. We're still in the process of kind of testing out where everything goes. And you'll see some coaches are offering their courses for, $200, $300, $400. And we kind of settled on that, that about at that 125 mark, because we really wanted to get our coaching out there to people. Vision is such an important thing to living the best life you can that I don't want people to think I can't afford a coach because I can't put down $200 on a session. I wanted to make it as affordable as I could be in order to get it into the hands of as many people as possible.
That's awesome. Well, Noah, I appreciate your time today. Everyone go check out his Twitter. I'll also put links down below in the show notes for everything that he just mentioned, so it'll make it a whole lot easier to find and to connect with Noah and what they're doing over at Justice Coaching. So everyone, thank you for listening to the podcast today. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and help spread the word. So again, Noah, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. It was a real pleasure being on here, Chris.